Okay, so Australia and New Zealand played a lunchtime kickoff in the Women's Rugby League World Cup final, the prelude to the men's, which is coming shortly as I'm recording this video, between Australia and Samoa. Um, the group stage match between these two nations, which finished 10-8 to Australia, was possibly the best advert I have seen for Women's Rugby League ever. And I'm a big fan of the NRLW. I think it's come on a very, very long way since it began in 2018, even with the COVID pandemic interrupting it. However, this final was a blowout. It is a shame. It's finished 54-4 to Australia. And you could definitely see within the first 15-20 minutes the game was slipping away from New Zealand very, very early on. Now, they weren't getting completely blown out in the first half, but the intensity level, the defensive pressure, and where they're starting their sets of six in comparison to Australia, they were on the back foot from very early on. And the scoreline with the regular scoring in the first half, and then the second half, New Zealand completely surrender, in my opinion. They completely fall apart. There's a lot of set after set. They don't get a hold of the ball pretty much for the last 13 minutes. They barely touch the ball. So the arm wrestlers won in the first half. Now, how much energy and intensity and mental fatigue did they leave on the field against England and against Australia in the group stage? England obviously in the semi-final. Australia, better squad rotation. That's definitely one. Every player in this Australian side has played at least a full 80 minutes. So has played at least a full game match's worth of rugby league. So they've rotated the squad, which they haven't got a depth of talent. New Zealand barely changed their lineup from the big first group stage all the way through to the final. Didn't necessarily rotate their forward pack, which I think was a mistake. But again, you can see the difference in squad depth between the two sides and how far Australia have come from where New Zealand, who've never missed a World Cup final, by the way, and have competed in every single World Cup final. Australia, they've now won 3 in a row. But let's break down the scoring and let's figure out what went wrong for New Zealand. The second half, they do mentally check out. They completely lose their way defensively. There's defensive misreads all over the place. And both Australian centres, in Kelly and Sturgis, who play together for the Roosters in the NRLW, had a field day. They scored a pair of tries each. And you can definitely tell that the Kiwis in the second half were just run out of energy, both mental and physical. So, yes, they won that game against England in the semi-final, and they were very, very close to beating the Australians in the group stage. But I think that this was a step too far. And mentally, I don't think they necessarily emotionally took hold of the game. I think they allowed the occasion to get the better of them, maybe. But let's break it down. So Jess Sturgis starts the scoring after just 5 minutes, and Brigginshaw converts. So Sturgis is a powerful ball runner, very destructive ball runner, deceptively powerful, because she's not the biggest centre in the women's game, but deceptively powerful, and she gets the ball rolling after 5 minutes. Now, bearing in mind, New Zealand can barely get out of their half. They are going set for set, but the territory is with Australia, and that territory pressure tells. Isabel Kelly, her teammate at the Roosters, and the other centre, scores her first try in 15 minutes. And this is where you're thinking, okay, they're on top, but New Zealand are still going set for set with the Gillaroos here. They're not completely getting blown out at this point. However, it's where they're starting with possession and where they're ending with possessions when they're turning over possession after the set of 6. Australia have got more territory and more field position, and that is consequently having an impact on the scoreline to a certain extent, because there's territory pressure. And then the Australian defence was straight up in their face. The Kiwi defence was a little bit more passive, and the organisation, I mean, Sturgis and Kelly were punching holes on the fringes through that defensive line, and then they're also rolling up the middle, and they're dominating the collision, which is important, which we may see in the Samoa-Australia final in the men's. The collision's going to be important, the middle's going to be important, and then your fringes, and then numbering up. And when Julia Robinson scores her try in 27 minutes, okay, now you can start to see the mental side of the game and the organisation side of the game and the physicality. The Aussies were just... Whether they're fitter, I don't think that's necessarily the case, because a lot of the Kiwis do play in the NRLW, and play with and against a lot of these Aussie girls at club level. So I don't think fitness is the issue. I think it was a more mental aspect in this match, because they went toe-to-toe in the group stage and it went down to the final whistle, 2 points in it. This game, there's got to be a more mental side of it, an emotional side of it, that the Kiwis didn't get right. Now, Isabel Kelly scores her second try in 36 minutes, and Brown converts that one. And now you're seeing Brigginshaw converted that one. Sorry. Now you're seeing it's 20-0 at half time. Australia haven't won this match yet, but they're going a long way to do so. Physically, they have started to dominate. Now, whether they only having that one serious match against the Kiwis, and they took some lessons from that. The Kiwis, that I think that lack of squad rotations had an impact. Now, the second half, their scoring was so consistent. They had 3 back-to-back sets pretty much where they score before Bartlett scores the sole points for New Zealand with her try, and then 3 more sets which are basically in a row. So they control the possession, they control the territory, and the Kiwis cannot get hold of the ball for lengthy spells in that second half. And I think mentally they surrendered. Physically they're still making the tackles. There are defensive mismatches all over the place. For a couple of the tries, really poor defensively. They're dropping off tackles. So Tonegate starts the second half scoring on 49 minutes. Imagine having an Olympian who's won, in the Olympics, played both codes, coming off the bench. One of the best players in the women's competition in Australia coming off the bench. That's got to take it out of you mentally a little bit, going, okay, we're struggling to shut down the second or third string fullback. Now they've got the best fullback in the world coming on the field. That's a bit of a problem. That's on 49 minutes. Brown converts. Jess Sturgis scores her second try on 52. Just yes, McGregor is also a very good centre, but she's a smaller centre, and that's a physical mismatch. And while McGregor is a very skilled centre, Sturgis is more powerful. Breaks through that one. You can't really knock McGregor for that. But again, that lumbering up and helping defenders and that defensive communication on the edges was not good enough. That's 52 minutes. Aiken, they're just dropping off tackles at this point at 57 minutes. That's a very good try, to be fair. Good support play. There was a few sets without the ball there, so okay, then they're not being as completely clinical all the time. But that's on 57 minutes, and then the play starts slowing down. Madison Bartlett, that's good holding of the width, and is a poor defensive misread by the Australian right edge. Jess Sturgis charges out the line. You either make the intercept or make the tackle. She does neither, and that creates the overlap, which McGregor then goes through the hands from Rota, and that's a good try. Cherrington scores 2 tries in 2 sets on 67 and 70 minutes. Again, through the middle, they're dropping off tackles at this point, and you want to do well after scoring. Do well defensively. The Kiwis can't do that. That's 2 back-to-back tries and back-to-back sets. And then Polite, that's just shocking defence, breaking tackles all over the place on 73 minutes. So the last, 13 minutes, the Kiwis barely touched the ball, and that was the case at the beginning of the second half as well. So there's 2 spells in the second half where the scoreline blows out, which is a shame. However, looking at it, as I say, the final, if the group stage game between these two was the final, we've got a brilliant advert for the women's game. Because it's a blowout, I think, unfortunately, it's a lesser advert for the women's game. I'm saying that, mentally the Australians were tuned in, physically the Australians were tuned in, and in attack the Australians were tuned in. New Zealand, they've had a brilliant tournament. They played some, I think, more tough games than Australia. They have shown, some good quality, and they've got, Racine McGregor is the best player in the game right now, so they have got superstar players in the women's game. They will obviously learn a lot from this. I think the mental aspect of the game is where they let themselves down today. Emotionally, they let themselves down today. And of course, when the scoreline starts going against you, their heads dropped a little bit, the intensity dropped off. Maybe it was a game too far for them. And bear in mind, in the Australian women's competition, they only play 70-minute games. That 80-minute game, maybe the extra 10 minutes, extra 5-minute half, per half, the Australians possibly dealt with it better preparation. You just don't know what happened behind the scenes to have this blowout. But I think Australia having that better squad rotation throughout the tournament, and maybe looking a little bit fitter both mentally and physically as well, maybe a bit of preparation. But that group stage game, you're thinking this could be a closely fought final, and it unfortunately wasn't the case. Hopefully the men's final was closer, and maybe we get us upset with Samoa, although there are some key matchups that I think Australia have the slight edge in, and we'll see what happens in the men's final. But the women's final, it's been a very good tournament. We've seen some new fresh faces in the women's game. Yes, Australia have now won 3 finals in a row. England, yet to win a final. It's a shame, but we've seen some good quality, and the game is growing, which is fantastic. So there we go. Thank you very much for watching. Hopefully, in 3 years' time in France, the French team have improved in that time. Hopefully, both in the women's game, we do get more Test matches, and the game is growing in Australia and in Europe as well. So hopefully, we get more women playing the game. So there we go. Thank you very much for watching. Please place your thoughts in the comment section below, and I will have some more content for you very, very soon.